Hi and welcome back. In the last video we had an overview of the project that we're going to work on to learn how to create web pages inside of Microsoft Expression Web. And you remember in that last video I mentioned that there were going to be three distinct phases to actually creating your web page. And those were going to be setting up your HTML structure, then setting up your content inside of your structure, and then finally writing the CSS to actually format your page or to make it look the way you want it to look. So phase 1 was going to be setting up the HTML structure. Phase 2 was going to be adding your content to that structure. And phase 3 was going to be setting up the CSS. Now, in order to do the first couple of phases, you're going to need to understand a little bit about the language HTML. At this point, some people become really nervous because instead of just simply clicking on menu items and dragging and dropping things around, all of a sudden they've got to sort of be in the code and typing things out. And that can be a little intimidating at first. And while some programming languages are very difficult to learn, HTML is a relatively simple language to learn. It gets very detailed later on, but as far as what you need to know to create a basic website, like what we're doing here, there's not a lot to HTML. So this is going to be a relatively simple thing for you to learn. So don't worry, don't freak out that you're going to have to start learning the code behind the web page. This is going to be something that's going to be relatively simple and easy to learn. And to help you learn that, for this video, which is going to be an overview of HTML, I have a handout that's on my website. So if you've downloaded the framework and the completed exercise files, you can go back to that page and download the HTML handout for this video. And this is going to be the handout that we have right here. Oops, go back up here to the top. And you can see here I've got all the notes that you're going to need for this video. There aren't very much of it. You can see it's just like a page and a half. So not too terribly much to learn there. And then coming down here, the most important part of this handout is going to be this HTML vocabulary list. And this is a list of the essential HTML codes, or we call them tags inside of HTML, that you're going to need to understand in order to write clean, well-formed HTML. And you can see here as I scroll down, there are not too many of these codes that you need to learn. That's all there is to it. So you really need to only learn about 20 or 30 codes or tags to effectively write HTML. And then you just need to understand a few rules that I detail up here to understand how to write your HTML. So this handout is going to be great for helping you understand the content of this lesson. So I'm going to come back here and I'm going to come back into Expression Web and let's get started learning about HTML. So here we are back inside of Expression Web. And I'm going to go ahead and first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my Tools menu right here and I'm going to select Page Editor Options. And we want to make sure that your version of Expression Web and my version of Expression Web have the same options set up. And for our purposes, you're probably on the General tab right now. We want to go ahead and click on the IntelliSense tab right here. And there's a few of these options that I want to make sure that we've turned off because it's going to hinder us in learning HTML if we have Expression Web completing things for us. So here where it says auto insert, I want you to uncheck close tag, HTML attribute value quotes, and I want you to uncheck enable code hyperlinks for the following elements. So make sure that those three options are off. And then go ahead and click OK. And we're back here in our main window. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open this main.html page. And remember, there are a couple different views that you can be in. You can be in design view, or you can be in code view. And for this lesson, we want to be in code view. And I want to go ahead and delete everything that Expression Web has set up here for us so that we can start with a nice clean page. So I'm going to highlight all that and just hit delete. And so you should have just a nice empty main.html page. Now, first thing that you're going to need to understand about HTML is that there are two different kinds of tags. There are structural tags and there are semantic tags. And again, a tag is just a code that tells the browser something about the element that it's supposed to be working with. Now, a tag usually has an opening part and a closing part. The simplest and most basic tag that we work with is something called a p tag. And a p tag marks a paragraph of text. And a tag is always contained inside of these two greater than and less than, or I should say less than or greater than brackets. So that's how you write a tag inside of HTML. And we would say that this is an opening p tag. Wherever you have an opening tag, normally you need a closing tag. You close a tag by again doing a bracket, but then you put a slash and the tag name and then your closing bracket. So we have an opening p tag and we have a closing p tag here. Anything that's inside of those two tags is said to be contained in those tags. So I can type, this is a paragraph here, and this paragraph is contained, or this text is contained inside of this p tag. And again, we have an opening tag here and a closing tag. If I wanted to indicate a heading on a page, I could do that with another tag. In the case of headings, normally they're called H tags. And H tags always have levels associated with them. So I could say if I wanted a level 1 or a main heading, I could say H1 here. And again, where I have an opening tag, I need a closing tag. And then anything inside of those tags is said to be contained inside of it. So I could say this text is contained inside of this H tag or this H1 tag. And we look at this in design view right now, you'll see there's your heading and there's your paragraph of text. So HTML is written with a series of codes called tags. Every tag has both an opening form, or almost every tag has an opening form, and it also has a closing form. Now, going back to what I said originally, there are two major kinds or major groupings of tags inside of HTML. There are structural tags and there are semantic tags. For right now, don't worry about the differences between the two. We'll talk more about them later. But starting off, we're going to talk about structural tags. And there are really only 5 HTML structural tags that you're going to need to know. When I come here to my vocabulary list, you can see here I have semantic tags, and there's the P tag and the H tag, and then I have structural tags. And there are the 5 structural tags. And if you haven't downloaded this handout, you can go ahead and just type these notes out from what you see here. But you can see there are really only 5 structural tags that you're going to need to know. And we're going to start off by learning these first 3, HTML, head, and body. So coming back in here, I'm going to go ahead and again select all of this and delete it. Now, web browsers like Internet Explorer can actually display multiple types of documents. For example, you've always been able to display a web page that's written in HTML in a browser, but many times on the web now we're able to click on Adobe PDF documents, and the browser can open those up and display those for you. Browsers can display documents in another language called XML also. So there are different languages associated with the web. Another is JavaScript. So when a browser opens up a page, it needs to know the language that you're actually using to write your content or to set up your page. And that's that first tag, HTML. And again, where we have an opening tag, we always need a closing tag. So anything that we place in between this opening tag and this closing tag will be considered by the browser as HTML. And we say that content is contained inside of those tags in exactly the same way a paragraph of text could be contained inside of a p tag. Now, there are two major sections inside of every HTML document: a head section and a body section. And you write those very simply just like this. Whoops. Head. And then I close my head tag. And then body. And then I close my body tag. Just like that. Now, HTML is not case sensitive. So you can type this in uppercase or lowercase. I would recommend, though, that you type all of this in lowercase and that you generally get used to typing things in all lowercase, because some things, like style names, actually are case sensitive. So if you stick with all lowercase, you're going to be ahead of the game. HTML also does not care about what is called white space or empty space in a document. It doesn't matter if you write this like this, or if you have the tags side by side like this, or if I've got a whole bunch of carriage returns in there. This all means exactly the same thing in HTML. It also doesn't matter if you've indented things like that. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get used to using white space or extra lines and tabs or indents to organize your code and make it really readable. In this case, the head section and the body section are contained inside of the HTML tags. So I indented them in to indicate very easily or very visually the structure that's here. So you can give yourself as many spaces and you can use indents as much as you want, as long as your code is very readable. And you'll sort of get the feel for how you like to write the code as you go along. The only goal is that it be very readable and very organized. Now back to these two sections here, head and body. The two major sections that are in absolutely every HTML document. And they have very specific purposes. Any information that you place inside of the head tag is going to be an instruction to the browser. Anything you place inside of the body tag is going to be content that the visitor is going to see. So if you need to tell the browser something, you place that in the head section. If you want to create content for your visitor to see, you place that in your body section. And there are exceptions to that, but that's generally the way this is outlined. So things like links to your style sheet, or meta tag information for search engines, or the language attribute to say what language your web page is written in, that's all going to be in the head section of your document. Things like text and headings and tables of information and images. Well, that's all content that you want your visitor to see. So that's going to be in the body section of your web page. So we have the head and the body section. Now, the only thing that we need to place inside of the head section is a title tag. And that's going to be the title for the window or the tab inside of the browser. If I go ahead and bring up Google Chrome here, you'll see there's a name here for this tag. Whatever you place inside of the title tag is going to be displayed in this tab right here. In Internet Explorer, it would be in the title bar at the top, maybe. If you don't have a title tag, whatever the name of the page, whatever the file name, will be displayed there. So if we didn't want it to say index.html there, instead of if we wanted to say welcome to Fullerton Corporation, we would place that in a title tag. So inside of the head tag, I'm going to go ahead and do an opening title tag and type welcome to my website. And then I'm going to go ahead and close my title tag. And again, white space doesn't matter. In the case of head, body, and HTML, I had the opening and closing tags on different lines. In the case of title, I just lined it all up at once. I could have just as easily done this though. And this would have been exactly the same thing as the way I had it before. So again, that's entirely a matter of personal preference. One other thing that I want to point out to you, I'm going to go ahead and delete my title tag, my closing title tag from right there. I want you to notice that head is now in red and highlighted in yellow. And that's Expression Web's way of saying, hey, I think there's a problem here. Something's not right. And Expression Web is right because we didn't close our title tag. So whenever you see something in red and highlighted like it is here, you know that Expression Web is calling out an error on your page. When I go ahead and re-add that title tag there, you'll now see that the head tag has gone back to normal type. So watch out for that yellow highlight and red on your different tags because it means you've made a mistake. Now, coming down here to the body section, again, this is where you're going to place any content that you want on your page. Now, the difference between structural tags and semantic tags is pretty simple. A structural tag identifies the structure or the outline of your HTML document. Whereas a semantic tag, the word semantic means to have what its meaning is. A semantic tag identifies what a piece of content is. So if we come back to our handout here and we look at our first couple of semantic tags that we've already used, P and H1, well, you can see how the paragraph tag gives meaning to the content that it contains. It denotes that a paragraph of text is here. Or H1 indicates that this is a first level heading on a page. This has meaning. Whereas these down here are basically just for creating the structure of your document. It doesn't say anything at all about your content. So I can go ahead here and in my body tag, and by the way, you would never have a semantic tag inside of your head section. You would never have a semantic tag inside of your head section. And in the body section, I could go ahead and if I wanted to give a title to my page, I could do an opening H1 tag. And again, it highlighted body in red because I haven't closed that tag. And I could type welcome to my website. And then I can close that HTML tag. And again, the error went away. And then I can come down here and type a paragraph of text. This is a paragraph. And then I can close my p tag. Save that. When we look at this in design view, you'll see what you have here. Now, if you were in design view like we were in earlier lessons and adding content and making changes, those changes are going to be made behind the scenes as well to the HTML. If I click at the end of this paragraph and hit enter and type another paragraph on the page, well, that's another p tag that's right there. So when I look at this in code view, you can see that another paragraph has now been added to my page. This also gives more meaning to these little code hints right here. When I click on this paragraph right here, you can see Expression Web is visually telling me, well, that's a p tag, or that content is contained, hence the box, in that p tag. Same thing here. Same thing with H1. If I click down a little bit lower, you're going to see I have body here, and body has a box that's containing both the heading and the two paragraphs. And sure enough, when we look at our code, we see body is containing those elements. So design view can be really helpful, not necessarily in structuring your pages, but in identifying the structure of the pages when you're visually looking and seeing the way things are going to look. If I click on this paragraph, you're going to see this area right up here at the top sort of gives you an outline of what you've got going. We can see this is inside the body. This is a paragraph which is inside of the body tag. If I click up here, I can see this is an H1 inside of my body tag. So those code hintings really help you in laying out a web page, and we'll see that just a little bit later. Now, I'm going to come back in here to code view, and let's learn about a few more different types of semantic tags. We're going to come back to the structural tags in a little bit. But when we're looking at our different tag types here, a lot of these have to do with text. And there are three tags here, UL, OL, and LI, that have to do with organizing elements into, or content into, lists of information. Now, sometimes these lists are going to be just traditional bulleted or numbered lists like what you're used to. But oftentimes you're going to use a list to organize other types of content on the page. For example, when we look at our completed project here, this menu up here at the top is actually in a list. These social media icons here are in another list. When I come to my contact page, the fields in this form are elements in a list. So don't restrict yourself to thinking about a list just as a traditional list of bulleted or numbered text items. A list is a sequence of items, whether it is a bulleted or numbered list or a sequence of fields on a page, in this case for the form, or a sequence of menu items. So lists are one of the most important elements that you can understand inside of HTML. Now, there are two different types of lists, unordered lists and ordered lists. Unordered lists are always contained in UL tags, or unordered list tags. An ordered list is contained in an OL tag. By default, unordered lists show up as bulleted lists, and ordered lists show up as numbered lists. But again, when we're using lists for other types of things like menus or forms, we're going to remove the bulleting and the numbering and just use the essential attributes of the list for that element. And again, we're going to come back to that in a little bit. But if I wanted a bulleted list, I would start by opening a UL tag and then by closing the UL. And now it can be said anything that I can put inside of this is said to be contained in this unordered list. Now, unordered lists, the different element or lists in general, whether they're ordered or unordered, the different elements in those lists are contained in LI tags or list item tags. So let's say I wanted a list of names here. I would do LI Timothy. Whoops, forgot to type the closing item out there. And then I can do Mary. And we'll do one more, Peter. So I have 3 list items here that are contained inside of a UL. When I go into Design View, sure enough, you can see there is my unordered list. And again, when I click on that, you're going to see it says LI there. You'll also see that it says up here in your code hinting that this element that I have selected is in the body section, inside of a UL section, inside of a list item tag. And again, this may seem pretty simple and obvious right now, but later on it's going to really help you debug your HTML pages. Now, if I went ahead and went into Code View here, let's say I changed this UL here to an OL. And then saved it and went back into Design View, well, now it's a numbered list. So remember, ULs give you a bulleted list and OLs give you a numbered list. And I could change that back just as simple as typing the code there. Now, a very frequent mistake at this point is I actually changed that from an OL to a UL, but there's no closing UL tag. There's also no opening OL tag. So you can see again there's an error right here. And Expression Web is highlighting that in yellow and placed it in red. If I change that closing tag to UL though, you'll see the error goes away. So that highlighting in red is really, really important for identifying issues inside of your web page. We're going to go ahead and take a break in this video now. The next video we're going to learn how to do links as well as tables of information inside of HTML. So I'll see you in the next video.